Hi, everybody. It's Bill Whittle here with Steve Green and Scott Ott, your faithful and loyal employees who do your bidding at your slightest whim. And we are here with our members-only right angle for this particular week. You know, sometimes I want to do a story because I occasionally find a story that runs contrary to the kind of stories that I usually run, and I don't want to be seen as just one-dimensional on these issues because I think most everything is a little more complex than it looks.
Stay in your lane, man. Stay in your lane.
Yeah, that's right. There you go. So today I saw the story of Maddie Martin, who is the first woman to play on her high school football team. And the reason I wanted to cover this story was because it seems like she is an extremely good receiver, from what I could see, and runs and jinks and gets tackled just like everybody else. And I've done a bunch of stories about men who identify as women and then go and play in women's sporting divisions and win everything, and all of the 100,000 actual biological girls who were competing get robbed. But I just wanted to do this because I wanted to be clear on something, and that is that my problem with this is not with female athletes at all. My problem is with maintaining standards and understanding the biological difference between men and women athletes. So, Steve, let's start with you. If this was a mandated Title IX kind of thing where you must have a certain number of women football players on your team, I would be saying yet another step on the road to hell. But when I see this young woman try out for the team and get there on merit, I just want her to go on, kick butt, and win a state championship. It's important that we make this distinction, I think, because we want to be clear what it is we're opposing, at least for me anyway. I'm not opposing female athletes, and I'm not opposing transgenderism. I'm opposing people who tell you that there is no biological difference between male and female athletes. That's where I get off the boat. So what do you think of Maddie Martin and her suiting up for this football squad?
What a remarkable athlete. More power to her, right? Isn't that what...
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had three waves of feminism so far. First wave feminism was about removing the legal barriers and legal restrictions that women had suffered under historically, and yay, let's do that. Please, we're Americans. We believe in liberty. We believe in equality. We need to affect that in our laws. Second wave feminism was a little different. It was about breaking down cultural barriers, the glass ceiling and whatnot. That has been an incomplete effort, sadly incomplete if you ask Hillary Clinton, but we didn't reject her because she's a woman. We rejected her because she's a corrupt and amoral and terrible human being. But second wave feminism was about saying, yes, women have the legal right to be the CEO. Now let's actually make a woman the CEO, provided she's the best man for the job, so to speak. But now we've come to third wave feminism, which isn't about empowering women legally or culturally. It's about putting men down. It's payback for all those years of oppression, when in fact it was the male creation of Western civilization and capitalism which created enough wealth and opportunity that first and second wave feminism became possible, as Camille Paglia has been arguing for years now. That's not me. That's Camille. What I want us to get to is a fourth wave feminism where we repudiate this stuff. This notion that a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. No, we need each other. This in-your-face assertion that the best job for the man is a woman. Well, no, the best person for the job is the best person for the job. So I would like us to kind of stop this pendulum that's been swinging in the direction of putting men down, putting us in our place for the last, I don't know, probably about 15 years now, maybe longer if you really consider the start of this nonsense to be the, well, no, I'm going to leave that aside. It just isn't germane. But if we can get that pendulum to swing back a little bit and find a place where we are at a comfortable medium with each other, well, we're going to put an awful lot of social justice warriors out of work, and I think that's just dandy.
That's my goal, is to put social justice warriors out of work. And Scotty, the way that I think that you do that is to understand that, at least my understanding of conservatism, where it intersects with societal issues as opposed to economic ones, is this entire idea of the individual, that we are absolutely color and sex blind, that it is a question of individual merit, individual achievement, individual motivation, all of these things. What do you when the military first decided that they were going to have female fighter pilots in the Navy, I seem to recall that they basically put these two women into a squadron, and one of them flew the jet into the back of the aircraft carrier because she just wasn't good enough. That was because it was enforced from above. Since that time, there are a number of superb female fighter pilots, and I know a friend of mine who's been a commander of a fighter wing, and he says the women pilots that are there are terrific. So where do you come down on this idea of do you think there should be any limits to things like this? Do you think that, for instance, that the men are not going to hit this player as hard as they would otherwise? They certainly seem to. Or should it really truly be completely merit-based? That's certainly the argument I'm trying to make.
I'm in a weird place on this, and this would extend to some other issues, too, that are considered to be sort of conservative heart issues or hot-button issues. I don't think that there should be government pushing this kind of thing. I don't think that there should be government preventing this kind of thing. On a personal level, I don't want to hit a woman, and I wouldn't do it. Now, if it was the tennis team, if we were throwing javelin, if we were doing shot put or track or hurdles or anything like that, where you are essentially competing side by side in the same event, but without physical contact, then I think I could do it. I didn't like the wrestling thing that we did a show about some time back. I think that's another one of those things where I don't think it's a good lesson for little boys to say, go out there and beat the crap out of that woman. I really don't. Now you could say, well, I'm a socially conservative, stick in the mud, old primitive, Neolithic Christian guy. I'm not saying that government needs to get involved in this. I'm just saying what I would personally do. I don't think that homosexual behavior is a good idea. I don't think transgenderism is a good idea. Do I think that the government should be involved in marriage in any way? No. Do I think that the government should either fund or restrict people from behaving in ways that are inconsistent with their biological sex? No. I want my government out of that, but I think that there is room for, I think you can do both. I think you can say, look, on a personal level, I consider certain kinds of behavior harmful to society, harmful to individuals, behavior I would not engage in, behavior that contradicts my faith even. But that doesn't mean that I want to use the power of government to intervene on my behalf and to either promote or enforce ideas that I favor or oppose. I don't know what that makes me. I don't know what that, because I don't hear a lot of people talking like this, but, I think it's almost like you have to say, well, if I don't want the government to do something about it, then I don't believe anything about it. I have very strong beliefs about it, but I don't want the government involved in it.
That's your strongest belief, and I respect that. Certainly. Well, one of your strongest beliefs. There is still some little concerns for me, and I agree with Scott about the hitting women thing, and maybe the male players on the opposing team will go lighter on her, but I suspect the opposite is true. I suspect that they're going to hit her harder than make an effort to hit her harder than they do. Not to get her out of the game, but to see if she's really made out of the stuff that that you need to be a football player. And as far as the argument of not hitting women goes, I think if somebody voluntarily puts on pads and a helmet, then they're going to get the full game from me. This is the tough road, and this is why I like this story, and I like to talk about this story. There is a pathway, I think, for conservatives to live in a world of absolute freedom and equality that does not pretend that there are no differences between the sexes. And I find this kind of story to be exactly that. One of the projects I've been working on the side for a year now is a series of videos with these computer-generated characters and science fiction stuff and so on. But just to give you an idea of how my thinking works, I wrote a scene for this where there's 6 new pilots come into the squadron, and 5 of them are men and 1 of them's a woman. And she comes in to the commanding officer's office late at night and says, "Sir, I'd like to talk to you." He says, "Have a seat." She says, "Captain, these the guys are faster than I am. They got quicker reflexes and they're a lot more aggressive." He says, "Yes." And she says, I want you to tell me how I can beat them." And he says, "Aha." And then he goes on to say, well, maybe they're too aggressive, or maybe they get target locked, or so on. But to me, I love that aspect of it, because in that situation, the female character is not denying the difference. She's saying, despite the biological differences, what do I have to do as an individual to defeat these people with a natural advantage? And I find that to be exceedingly noble. So I think Maddie should just go out there and have herself a fun time, and I wish her the best. I hope she succeeds. I hope she succeeds, because it doesn't seem to me, from where I am on the story, that they're making special allowances for her, or that she was forced onto the team, or that we were supposed to accept this out of some sense of moral, virtue signaling. No, she just seemed like she was good enough to make the cut. She's on the team. There you go. So yeah, that's the ground I try to walk, and all of us have a slightly different shade of things. But the nice thing about conservatives as opposed to liberals is there is not a party line on conservatives for what we are to believe upon this subject, variation from which will earn you exile and opprobrium and excommunication from your friend's family, job, and privacy. So sometimes it's good to disagree about things. That'll do it for your members only Right Angle. Bill Whittle here with Steve Green and Scott Ott. Once again, exceedingly grateful for your ongoing support and membership. And we will see you next week right here on Right Angle.